Okay, a quick pros and cons video on this 2022 Land Rover Range Rover Defender. If you haven't seen my full review on this vehicle already, I'll leave that in the description box below because that's where I really go into my nuanced thoughts about driving this machine. But it was a very pleasurable experience indeed. This is easily my most favorite Land Rover Range Rover product, and probably the most impressive one that they've ever built. The first pro is going to be with this drivetrain. I love this inline-six engine. This is definitely the engine to go with. I would skip the 4-cylinder all day long, and this 8-speed transmission does a great job shifting. There's very minimal lag with this engine, turbo lag that is, because it has like that mild hybrid system to help it out as well. Very impressive, pulls great on the highway and definitely in the city as well. Does 0 to 60 in like 5.8 seconds. That number means absolutely nothing to me. When you drive it, you feel just how satisfactory the power and the surge is in this thing. The major con with this is the very obvious reliability track record of these Land Rover products. It's piss poor. I mean, yes, I understand you get a 4-year, 50,000 mile new car warranty with this. That's great, but that doesn't save you from like the annoyances of like, you know, the vehicle just randomly shutting off. A buddy of mine, he actually purchased a new Range Rover back in like 03, and he was telling me every 500 miles, almost like clockwork, there was a check engine light that would come on every 500 miles. 500, 1,000, 1,500, and then 2,000 miles hits, right? Check engine light comes on, like always, and then he just didn't bring it to the dealership. He just drove it. He said, screw it, right? What can possibly go wrong? He was doing like 65 miles an hour out on the highway. Vehicle just turns off on him. So this is the kind of nonsense that deters people away from this brand, and then they go to like a Lexus or an Acura or something like that. This is the nonsense that changes people's minds, but it's such a cool vehicle. It drives so well. It's got an amazing demeanor to it that I understand why people just stick with it and make excuses for it, because it does drive really sublime. I've really enjoyed driving this vehicle. So let's go into that pro, the overall handling demeanor and the ride quality of this, because that's what blew me away about this. Because you look at it, it just looks like one big tall bread box, and that's what it is, but that's not at all what this drives like. You might think it's really imprecise or it rides like garbage, but the ride quality is silky smooth with these 20-inch wheels. It doesn't even have the optional air suspension, and I wouldn't even option the air suspension with this car. It's totally unnecessary. Get it just the way you see it here with like the Adventure package or the Explorer package, so you get that little box on the side. The handling, right? You might think it's really top heavy, but it's not. It feels like the center of gravity is super low in this, so when you take turns in this, left-hand turns, right-hand turns, your occupants, they're not flipping over onto their side or anything like that. The vehicle remains neutral. When you get on the brakes, you're not getting shot through the front windshield. It just remains neutral and balanced. The steering is also very precise. It's got the correct weight to it. It's such a joy and privilege to drive this thing around. And I guess the other major pro with this is going to be the overall swagger, the demeanor, and the exterior / interior looks of this vehicle. Everybody has been gawking at this. People are pointing at it. They're smiling at it. They love seeing this thing out on the road. It's one of the coolest experiences, and I think that makes your ownership of this very satisfactory. And it does truly have a cool look. It almost kind of reminds me of like a Stormtrooper, kind of like a Lego toy almost, and I mean that in a good way. I said this in my full review. I just like the simplistic taillights in the back. I also like this interior space. It kind of has like this rubberized plastic materials. It's very durable. It's got this riveting going across. You can tell the primary duty of this is off-roading, and it is the most capable Land Rover Range Rover product that they've ever produced. It's got the toughest chassis and body to handle abuse. The seating position in this is excellent. It's a large vehicle on the outside, but when you drive it, it feels small. I like it when vehicles pull that off. Now, I mentioned the interior is excellent. I do like using it. It's pretty intuitive, but one con is going to be with this infotainment system, this Pixie Pro, whatever it's called. It's a 10-inch display. That's fine. You can upgrade it to an 11-inch screen or an 11.4-inch screen. But it's just a little bit cumbersome to use. You have a lot of menus you have to kind of dive through here. So it's not super simplistic, but you can get used to it. It's got the wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which certainly helps. But fortunately, the gauge cluster is clean, simplistic. That's not an issue. It's just the infotainment system. Another thing, you can also pay up around $2,600 to upgrade this interior to like a cognac interior or like a full leather interior. But I personally like this durable, rubberized interior space that we have here. I think it's just really appropriate. And most importantly, it's comfortable in here. Plenty of lumbar support, very non-fatiguing seats, so that's great. The other thing is, the only other con is they don't use double pane glass in here, so this is a louder cabin space. There's a lot more wind buffeting going on here, even at 50 miles an hour, definitely at 75. It doesn't bother me because this is kind of an off-roader, similar to like the Broncos and the Jeep Wrangler. So because this car is so refined, I don't mind that there's this extra level of wind buffeting that you experience. I think it's appropriate for what it is. It kind of helps you to be connected to this vehicle a little bit more. So I don't mind it, but it's just something to note. It's not like your traditional GLE 450s or your Porsche Cayennes. Another pro to this is the sheer amount of practicality here. This is one of the most spacious Land Rover products. It's even better than the Range Rover Sport and even the full-size Range Rover. There's so much legroom back there and plenty of trunk space as well. So overall, the practicality, the size, the capabilities of it, the performance out on the street, the off-road performance, it's so impressive. It's so satisfactory. Easily my most favorite Land Rover product. By far, I would choose this over the Sport and the full-size Rover any day because of just how enjoyable it is to drive, the demeanor of it. This feels fresh. Those vehicles, they feel a little bit long in the tooth. The full-size Rover got fully redesigned recently, but I would still go with this because the full-size Rover starts at around $100,000. This loaded up with the inline six is around 80 grand. This particular one is around $76,000. And you can also get the V8 for around $110,000, I believe. That will most likely be the last V8 Land Rover Defender. So if you wanted to get that and if you have the money to afford it, go ahead. But this is my quick pros and cons video. Check out my full review for a detailed look. Thanks again for watching. Take care and goodbye.